Bro, look at all of these scam messages that I'm getting. This is literally ridiculous, bro. Like, I get so many scam messages. It's crazy. Yo, what's going on, guys? My name is Unharmed, and today we are going to be talking about the different types of scams that go on in the music industry. So if you're planning on releasing music or performing live or basically just entering the music industry, I would really recommend that you watch this entire video because I'm going to show you a lot of red flags because these are very, very common. I've been making music for over 5 years. I've been putting music on Spotify, on YouTube, on all of that. And throughout these years, I've gotten so many scam messages. And honestly, there's so many different types of scams that go on. Some are very easily recognizable, while others are much more sophisticated that you wouldn't even guess it was a scam. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the different scams that exist, how you can detect them, and how you can avoid them. Being in the music industry, we're especially vulnerable because our music is our creation. We're literally emotionally tied to our music. That scammers know this and they really prey on us because we're vulnerable because of that. So because of that, it's super important to stay on top of these scams. So in this video, we're going to talk about more obvious scams to sophisticated scams, and we're also going to talk about both digital and physical types of scams. So we'll start with digital scams and then we'll move on to the physical scams. The first type of digital scam that we're going to talk about is paying for likes, streams, and follows. Now, hopefully this type of scam is obvious to you, but if not, don't worry, it wasn't to me either when I first started out, but these do exist and they're probably one of the most common types of scams that I've seen, where basically somebody reaches out to you on Instagram or email or whatever it may be, and they ask you, hey, do you want to spend 40 bucks? You just pay me 40 bucks and I'll give you 1,000 likes or 1,000 follows. You should never ever do this. This is a huge red flag if you're approached by an account like this. So there's a few reasons why you shouldn't do this. One is that most of these platforms like Spotify and Instagram, they have rules in their terms of service that goes against this type of behavior. So don't do it, first of all. But if you do decide to do it, I'm gonna tell you why you shouldn't and why you should think twice. Basically, when you go ahead and do this, you're usually getting likes and follows from a bunch of bots, from a bunch of fake accounts that don't even mean anything. And when you do this, the algorithm detects it and it basically flags it as bot activity, and it lumps your content with the rest of the bot activity, which is basically messing up your true organic stats. So you're just kind of fucking yourself over, to be honest. So because of those reasons, avoid these at any cost. This is a huge red flag. The second type of scam is paying for guaranteed PR, like radio play or blogs, like website blogs and just stuff like that. PR as a whole. So what happens is sometimes fake Instagram accounts will reach out to you and they're going to be pretending that they're an established radio host. And this type of scam is called phishing because they're basically impersonating somebody. They're pretending to be somebody that they're not. So if you ever get a message from somebody saying, hey, if you give me $100, I'll put you on my internet radio or something like that, I would really think twice. If they're pretending to be somebody from an established company, do your research, go on the company website. Does it look legit? Go on their profile. Is there bot activity? Are their Instagram posts really low quality? You know, any type of flags or indicators that tell you that this is a scam. But just be aware that this does go on. I would generally consider this type of scam to be like a strong yellow flag to like a light red flag, because there are straight up scammers, but there are actual real Instagram pages where people promote their music. Those do exist. So if you ever do want to go through with those, just make sure you really do your research, because scams do exist. The third type of scam that we're going to talk about is playlisting opportunities. So this one is weird because I think there's two types of scenarios. I'll talk about the first one. So in the first one, say somebody reaches out to you saying, hey, if you give me $100, I'll put you on my playlist. It gets about 25,000 streams monthly, so your music will for sure get streamed streams. That is a huge red flag, especially if this is a Spotify playlist. Spotify specifically has on their terms of service that you should not pay to end up on a playlist. It's against their terms of service. And at the same time, say if you do pay and you get away with it, just know that oftentimes these playlists are run entirely by bots. You're gonna get bot streams. And what happens when Spotify detects that your music is being streamed by a bunch of bots? They're gonna flag your music and they might take down your music, or they might just lump your music with a bunch of bot traffic type music and messing up your organic plays again. It's not worth the hassle. Avoid this. So the second scenario is you signing up for a service and paying for a service by a company that basically offers you opportunities to end up on a playlist. So there's a platform called SubmitHub, and you can directly reach out to playlist curators and pitch your own music. Now, this is okay because it's not guaranteed. These are actual playlist curators that have to listen to your music and see if they want it on their playlist. This is a legit business model. Typically, this isn't a scam. Now, I personally don't like really doing this because it hasn't really worked out for me. You know, my music is pretty niche, or they just didn't like it, or whatever it may be. So yeah, so just be aware that it kind of felt like I was just throwing money into the void, but it probably was because my music was a little too niche. But for example, I just released a song called Stars Aligned, which is more of like a pop rock song. So I've been thinking about trying that one because there's a lot more playlists that are pop rock. You know what I mean? You should stream Stars Aligned, by the way. Check it out. I'll put the link in my description. Now, the fourth type of scam is being reached out to by record labels. So very similar to number 2, sometimes people are just straight up impersonating A&Rs. So just be careful of that. Do your research, look up the website, just make sure it's legit. But there are also scenarios where a smaller type of like indie record label will reach out to you, and maybe they'll reach out for like a one-time deal, like one song or one album, whatever it may be. But in the case that you're entering conversations with the label, I would really recommend that you hop on a phone call or a Zoom call. Do not stick to Instagram DMs or email. Go on a phone call or a Zoom call. And before you sign anything, make sure you talk to a lawyer, or at the very, very, very least, at least ask like ChatGPT or something to read over the contract to make sure you're not, fucking yourself over. But whenever you are working with a label, it's important to make sure that they are legit, because when you're signing a deal, you're typically putting your actual signature, you're putting your address, and possibly your bank account information, depending on what music distributor they use, so the point is, sensitive information gets into the conversation, so just be wary of that. The last type of scam is basically being reached out to by a music marketing agency or company. Typically, they offer a bunch of types of services. They'll offer you like artist development services, like marketing strategy or running ads for you, a bunch of different services, right? Sometimes these companies are legit, but there's always some caution that you should have when interacting with these companies. Let me tell you about some of the services they offer. So I'm gonna pretend I'm an agency. So I'm gonna reach out to you, the artist, and I'm gonna say, hey, we checked out your music, we're loving it, and we think you can really step up your game. We offer marketing services so that you can scale your music so you get as many people listening to your music as possible. You want people listening to your music, right? Well, the best way to do that is to go ahead and enter our super exclusive group chat. We have a group chat full of micro celebrities that if you pay us $200, you get access to these people. You get to send them your music and they will comment and interact with your posts. This is a great way to get started, and this is great for you. So I hate this type of scams because people are literally selling you a group chat. They're selling you a group chat with a bunch of random micro influencers that don't give a fuck about your music. They're just getting paid. And the whole business model is that you're paying for access to these people that will comment on your posts. And when they comment on your posts, it makes it look like you have all this clout. It's just fake clout. I stay away from these because 1, fake clout is whack. 2, This is clearly a scam. Like, this is a money grab. If somebody offers you this, run. Now, another type of service that typically they offer is like general marketing services. So like I mentioned before, like marketing strategy, making content for you, or even running ads for you. And I want to make it clear that real music marketing does exist, but typically these types of agencies or companies, they do work with more established labels or more established musicians because the cost is pretty high. It's typically in the thousands or 10,000s, to be honest. Now, if you really trust a company and you think it's time for you to level up your music, say you're already making like tens of thousands of dollars from your music and you want to scale up, then it might work for you. But a lot of these services they offered at a very beginner level, you can learn yourself. For example, if somebody's offering to run Instagram ads for you, you can learn to do that by yourself. You can literally go on YouTube and learn how to set up an ad campaign and go ahead and do it yourself. And you don't need to pay that middleman. They basically act as middleman for these services sometimes. So another rule of thumb, if you're interacting with a music marketing agency, is to try and get a phone call or a Zoom call and really interact with them. Really ask them questions, especially if they are the ones reaching out to you. I'm going to talk about an experience that I had that really pissed me off. So basically, this music marketing agency reached out to me, offered me some services, and then I had follow-up questions, and he basically said, oh yeah, and by the way, what's your genre? I was like, dude, what? You don't even know what genre I'm in? So what that tells me is you haven't even listened to my music. You don't even know my genre. How are you gonna market my music? How are you even confident that you can take it on? And mind you, I was very hyper aware of this because I was in a niche, you know. It's kind of specialized when you're working in a niche because you need to know how to appeal to a very small audience. So I'm happy I didn't go with them, because to me it just felt like a money grab, you know. Even the sense of urgency that he was trying to say just really was a red flag to me. Okay, so that's it for the digital scams. That was a lot, but they're really important to think about, and there's definitely some that I probably missed. So what do you guys think? Do you guys agree that these are scams? Are there any that I missed? Go ahead and leave a comment down below with what you guys think. Now we're gonna go ahead and talk about physical scams. Now these types of scams are really important to think about if you're gonna play live or if you're trying to network in person. Now let's talk about the first type of scam, pay to play performances. If you're looking to play live, you will come across this, most likely, where basically you talk to a booking agent and they basically say, yeah, you know, you can perform, but it's gonna cost $100. But they don't say it just like that. They come to you with a pitch and they basically say this: hey dude, so your music is fire, you know, we checked it out and we really think that you will benefit from live performances. It's time to go out there. Don't you want a whole bunch of people to listen to your music? Well, I'm actually holding a gig next month and all you have to do is pay $100. But it is an investment, you know, you want to invest in yourself, right? You know, this music stuff, it really requires an investment, but just for $100, which is actually a really good price, you can perform. And not only are you going to perform, but there's a chance that there's going to be A&Rs there from this record label and that record label. And you know, all I'm saying is that you never know what will happen. So that's a pretty red flag to me, because the way that they're pitching to you is with this sense of urgency. They're basically saying, hey dude, you have to do this. If you don't, you will be missing out and you will regret not investing in your music. See how I tell you that they really know how to appeal to your emotions? So me, I'm not a fan of pay to play, just because I think if I'm giving up my time, I shouldn't be the one paying, you know? I've never done it, but if I were to be starting over again, maybe just one, you know, just to see what it's like. I can't find any type of gig, so I need to pay to perform. I might, but typically there's a lot of free opportunities where you don't get paid, but you also don't pay them. You know, you're not paying anybody for your time. This could be at coffee shops, at bars, you know, there's a bunch of places to perform. You also should not pay to perform, because the minute that you do, the booking agent will realize that you are vulnerable. They will realize that you are willing to pay to perform, and they will box you in as that artist that's willing to pay to perform. And while they have you, they will try and squeeze you out. You don't want to be known as that artist that's willing to pay to perform. Word gets around, and you just don't want to get boxed into that, trust me. Now, a step up from this, and one that I don't consider a red flag, is this business model where basically you get the chance to perform, but you need to sell a certain amount of tickets. So say a booking agent comes up to you and say, hey, so you don't need to pay to perform, but all I'm asking is that you sell 10 tickets. 10 tickets at $10 so that you bring in $100 for us. And if you only pay 5 and you only make $50, then you have to pay that rest of that $50 out of your own pocket. If not, you don't get to perform. Now, I'm also not a big fan of this business model, but I think it's a bit better than just paying straight up to perform. And I'm not a fan of this because if you're offered this, typically the booking agent is doubting your abilities to bring in a crowd. And if they're doubting you, then one thing you have to think about is if you're even really ready to go ahead and perform at a place like this. And 2, you have to think about, are the other artists doing this? If everybody's doing this, is this really the type of crowd that I want for my performance? Just everybody kind of in this pay to play weird type of model. But I do want to make it clear that this does go on, and it's not necessarily a red flag to me. I think I'm just not the biggest fan of it, but to each their own. Okay, and the very last thing I want to talk about is studio time. Now, keep in mind that I'm very, very biased because instead of paying for studio time, I have put a large investment into building my own home studio so that I can build in the comfort of my own home and on the go. So I'm more of a fan of seizing the means of production and building my own studio versus paying for studio time. It might just be because I've had horrible experiences. Maybe I just like kind of working at my own pace, but I want to give my thoughts to you guys on this. So booking studios is not inherently a scam, but I want to talk about my own experiences so that I can kind of send a message to you guys. So the first time I booked a studio, I reached out to a studio myself. I said, hey, I'm interested in booking a studio. I've never done it before. They said, yeah, we charge $75 an hour and we typically recommend 4 hours. I said, okay, well, that is a lot of money, so let me go ahead and think about that. I'll call back in a few days. Then he called me and had a completely different tone and said, hey, so the spots are filling up really, really quickly. And, if you really want to lock in, I recommend you do it now, because if you don't, there won't be space for the next few months. And I was like, oh shit, okay, this must be really in demand, so let me go ahead and do it. And I booked it for $300. And I feel pretty dumb doing it because I fell for this urgency, because it was just a very, again, music was very emotional to me, at least, and to many people, that I'm more likely to fall for stuff like that. I got there and it wasn't a horrible session, but at the end of the session, the mixing engineer sent me back all of my stems, which is all of the files separated. And when I listened to my vocals, the music from the headphones was so loud that the mic picked up all the music, which basically was unprofessionally recorded music. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a waste of studio time. And so I wasn't a fan of the experience. I wasn't a fan of the urgency that guy tried to instill, and just the overall kind of end result of it, because I didn't even get anything done. And on top of that, they kept reaching out to me every month after that, asking me if I wanted more studio time, which goes to show that there was space. They were just trying to make that type of urgency. So my main takeaway is just be aware of shitty studios. They exist. Shitty studios, shitty engineers, Just because studios are expensive, that doesn't mean that they always know what they're doing. And if you are gonna go ahead and book studio time, I would really recommend that you get a recommendation from a friend, you do your research, and really pay attention to people's kind of social skills and how they treat other people. Because honestly, I'm not a fan of working with people that treat people like shit and treat people like a money grab. And again, I'm really in favor of seizing the means of production. That's just me though. I know that buying studio equipment is expensive, but if you think about it, I paid $300 for one studio session. My mic was $100 and my first audio interface was $200. I already bought what I need to record my vocals for the same price as one studio session. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's all of the scams I have for this video. But let's talk about the main takeaways. The main takeaways I have are really just beware of people that try to instill this sense of urgency, Typically, this type of urgency is a little predatory in my opinion, and they're taking advantage of you or me because we're in positions of vulnerability, because we're vulnerable, because we love our music. Our music means so much to us. So the best way to avoid scams is to be confident in yourself. Be confident in yourself and try to avoid putting yourself in a desperate situation like this where people will see that and try and take advantage of you. There's a lot of shady people out there, so just please be cautious. And yeah guys, I really hope this video helped. It will mean a lot if you guys left a like, if you guys subscribe, if the video helped you, and also if you leave a comment, let me know if it helped you or not. Do you guys agree with the scams that I was pointing out? Do you think I'm too biased? Are there any other scams that I missed? Feel free to please let me know in the comments. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Really appreciate your time, and I hope this video helped. Take care guys.